Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of 365 Days of Gaming. I appreciate you taking out time to check out this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Much appreciated in advance. Now, today's episode, we're talking about an RPG. Right, we got a bunch of those to get through. Now, this particular one, I'm happy I got a chance to go back and do this episode because I kept saying for a long time that I wasn't a fan of like high fantasy, Middle Earth type stuff. What I realized is I'm not a fan of some of the newer things because I've played these RPGs back in the day and those were like my Middle Earth and high fantasy type adventures. So I've already had my feel to some degree and I kind of don't, want to dive back into those for nostalgia purposes. But the game I want to bring to you today is called Lunar the Silver Star Story Complete. Now, this is from the legendary but often forgotten Working Designs crew. And this was like their best kind of series that they're most known for is the Lunar series. Now, as always, got to give a shout out to my good friend Keith because he was the one that put me on to the Lunar series. And this game isn't like the story's great, but not for the things that we look for stories today. So nowadays, every time a game comes out, if it has a great story, it has to have some sort of like super intricate, deep plot and, some sort of twist or all of these kind of, changes in directions and misdirections on who's who and what's what. But this game, you play Alex, right? He's a young man. He lives in a world where Dragon Master Dine basically saved the realms before, and he idolizes him and wants to be like him. And slowly but surely, you become what you always wanted to be. And there are a lot of really interesting characters that you come across. But one of the things that I always really enjoyed about this game was this was one of the first games to really have like amazing presentation to me. And this is where we transferred from everything being in-game graphics to we started having the full motion video stuff. And this game was like has all these animated cutscenes. So the whole time I'm playing this, I'm trying to see like, what's the next scene? What's the next thing that's going to happen? And, every time a new character is introduced, every time you come up on a boss or just all of these different things, all of these important moments in this story. And this is a long game. This is one of those back in the day multi-disc games. I believe this game is like 2 discs, but technically had 3 where it had like a making of and all of this other stuff with it. But there's a lot of game here. Now, there's also been ports of this game, and one of my favorite ports of this game is the Game Boy Advance version, which basically it kind of like streamlined things and simplified it. It didn't have the FMV scenes, which was kind of whack, but as had like the first like portable version. This is before all of the RPGs from my childhood were on the iPhone store. So it was like my first chance to kind of play this game again, but also play like a mobile version of it. The game is not super difficult, but it can get tough. You do have to actually like fight. You can't just avoid all the battles. It's going to be real bad if you do that. You do have to level up, but it's not really a hard system. Kind of like a grid, so you can move characters up. People have like attack distances and things like that, so there's some managing involved. It was also one of the first games I played that I remember having like an auto battle, which I do not recommend, just because they're either going to try to use all your resources for no reason, or they're going to have you out here attacking in ways that are not the most beneficial, especially early on. Later in the game you can use that function and it does pretty well, but early on it's not your friend. But I really enjoyed this game because of, going through Alex's story, meeting all the different characters. The voice acting for its time especially was really, really good. Going back to play it, I can understand how it's aged. And also, every voice kind of seems like the standard for that time. Nowadays with voice acting, there's a lot more variety that you get from the different people that do voice acting, which is a great thing, right? But back then, the voices who did, basically most of the voice acting in these games pretty much were standard, right? They don't sound like voices that you haven't heard before, but they're not exactly the voices that you kind of hear nowadays with animes and different anime series. But yeah, this is one of those like some of my best childhood memories playing an RPG, getting up on Saturday morning and trying to log in 10, 12 hours was with this game. So I always really enjoyed this game. If you are a fan of RPGs, if you're a fan of like high fantasy adventures, this is definitely one for you. And also, again, this is one of the working design classics. So those of you who were into those games back in the day, you know exactly what we mean when we say working design. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this game, this series. There are other Lunar games that were like for the DS, and there were a lot of games for the original part of the series was for the Sega Saturn. So got ported over, got some sequels and some spiritual successors and whatnot. But this is my favorite of that whole bunch. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. As always, have fun, be safe. Peace.